please welcome to the stage the hugely inspirational Jackie Huba.
Thank you guys so much. I'm so excited to actually go after the panel you just saw, because I think you heard some really powerful things about word of mouth and about customer loyalty. I've been studying customer loyalty and customer relationships for the past 20 years. And so I'm going to share with you some fundamental things around consumer behaviors and loyalty, and then kind of translate that to what's going on in the LGBTQ community. So just to get started, I think this word loyalty, especially in business and marketing, is a very, I think, misused word. So what I want to show you is a model for thinking about your business that has to do with consumer behaviors and what loyalty really means. I've been around for a long time. I worked at IBM back in the 90s, and we did a lot of satisfaction surveys. So on our ladder of looking at behaviors for customers, measuring satisfaction is not something is really reliable anymore when it looks at loyalty, right? There's so many choices in the world. If you say, I'm satisfied with something, that's not really saying a lot, because the next thing comes along, you find it online, you move to the next thing. So we as businesses, when we look at customer relationship satisfaction, is not a metric that we really want to use. We want to level up on our ladder of loyalty. So retention, I know a lot of us will look at our customers. Are they buying from us over and over again? That is a better indicator of loyalty, but not the best, right? So I want to ask you, how many people are a member of an airline loyalty program? Raise your hand. Okay, now keep them up. Keep them up now. Keep them up. If you freaking love that airline so much, you tell everyone about it. Keep your hands up. Really? 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 Why? So we are in these so-called loyalty programs, right? But we talk smack about them to people, right? I mean, I'm afraid to know who that airline was that you guys talked about, right? So it's really a retention. That's a retention program. That's a frequent purchase program. We're kind of locked in because we want the rewards and points, but those are frequent use programs. So I know people throw it around and call it a loyalty program. It is not a loyalty program, right? And so retention says something. It doesn't say everything. This next level, to me, says a lot more. Referrals. So when people talk about a business to friends, family, and colleagues, they're not going to talk about that business unless they're pretty sure that you're going to have a great relationship with that business, right? You would never tell a friend or family, you should go to this restaurant, go to this hotel, go on this cruise, unless you know they're going to have a great experience. And that says a lot about also the LGBT market, right? Because we want to make sure that we're recommending things where people are going to have a great experience. Referrals, great, but there's even higher levels. There's 2 more higher levels of loyalty on this loyalty ladder. And the next one's called evangelism. My first book was called Creating Customer Evangelists. These customer evangelists, they love these businesses. I mean, you might think to yourself, what is a business I love so much, I tell everyone about it, I cannot stop talking about it? That's what I call customer evangelism. We'll see online behaviors where people might have a negative comment about the business. The evangelist will jump in and say, wow, that's not the experience I've had. They actually act like a virtual sales force. They love talking about the business. They tell everyone they know about it. So this is, again, a higher form. When we see that kind of loyalty, it's because they love it. They want to tell everyone about it. So we need to know about those folks and learn how to better engage them. There's one more level of loyalty, I think, is the holy grail when we're looking at customer loyalty, and that's called ownership. Now, this is when customers actually feel like they are part of the business. They want to help that business succeed. They want to do anything they can to help it succeed. And one of the stories, just to illustrate what this means, was in our first book, my co-author and I were at the headquarters of Southwest Airlines. And this was in 2002. So if you remember what was going on back then, we had come through 2001 with 9/11, right? So we're sitting at their headquarters. We asked them, tell us about your top customer evangelists. Give us an example. And they were telling us about what happened around 9/11. Now, you guys remember, if you do, back around 9/11, the airlines did not fly for a week. And then the planes afterward were not very full for a while. And so what happened immediately is that the airline industry laid off over 100,000 people. Now, Southwest had never laid off anyone in their entire history. They've been profitable every single year. And what they showed us were letters right after all of these layoffs were happening. These customers were sending Southwest letters, and they were saying, you know what? Please don't lay off my favorite gate agent, my favorite flight attendant. And so here's a check. Here's a returned flight certificate. Please put this towards the employee fund. Please don't lay off our favorite Southwest employees. Okay, remember that airline that you were a member of their loyalty program? If they weren't doing well, how many people would send them a check? No? And so there's very few examples, but I think that this ownership is what we're all trying to achieve as businesses, where people feel so engaged with us emotionally that they want to support us. And we may never get there, but I think if we strive for it, to me, that is what a customer relationship is like. Okay, so that's sort of a general model that when I talk to audiences around the world, this is what I want them to know. So let's look at specifically loyalty and word of mouth in the LGBTQ community. You heard some of this earlier, I think, but just to re-emphasize, this is some great data from community marketing where 54% of people in the LGBTQ community ask friends and family to buy because they know that that company is LGBT friendly, so over half. But watch this statistic in terms of word of mouth. 71% of LGBT people would tell friends and family to not buy because they know that company is not LGBT friendly, right? And so word of mouth is absolutely huge when it comes to increasing loyalty and how people know whether the companies are supporting or not. And specifically this statistic, how do people in the community know if that business does support the LGBTQ community? They hear it from friends and family. They hear it from LGBTQ friends. So people are telling other people, again, telling people about businesses that are trans-friendly or LGBT-friendly because it's important and they have to know. And so word of mouth is really high when it comes to all businesses, but specifically travel too. So let's look at some best practices. I have 3 books I've written on customer loyalty, and I want to share with you, and I have very little time, so I'm just going to share with you 2 best practices. And one of them has to do with sharing your values. And I tell this to audiences all over the world, that when you look at why people buy, they might buy from an analytical perspective, right? Like, how much do things cost? If you're buying a computer, you look at the features and functions. But then there's the emotional side of why people buy. And they're more increasingly looking at what you stand for in the world. I mean, in general, what is it that your brand supports? What is your brand about? How are you trying to change the world? And so this is really important that businesses, I think, today really showcase what their values are. Now, specifically for this community as well. I mean, this is really important. So as you heard from Raquel, I've written a book studying Lady Gaga back from when she started. I was just fascinated with this crazy performance artist who had this amazing music. But as someone who studies loyalty, what I was seeing her do is create this passionate, huge community around the world of people who absolutely loved her. And I wanted to understand how that was happening. And so in my research, what I found is from the very beginning, she very much showcased her values. And some of it's just because of what happened to her. When she was 19, here in New York City, she had a single, and she literally could not get played anywhere. She couldn't get a booking. Nobody knew who she was. She was this weird 5'2", crazy, outlandishly dressed singer. But it was a gay bar in New York that booked her first. Right? And then a second gay bar, and then the San Francisco Pride Parade. And so she began to develop a following in the LGBTQ community. And she always knew that if she ever was able to have a platform, she would use her voice to advocate. She was one of her first, I think, really out loud appearances was at the National Equality March before marriage equality, and she's been very vocal since then. With her, you guys all know, obviously, her Born This Way album, which I believe is a love letter to her LGBTQ fans, where she wanted to help them understand that they are perfect the way they are. But here's one of the things I love, and I think a lesson for all of us, it's not just what you say, it's really about what you do. And so I don't know if you've seen this, but when she was touring the US on that tour for Born This Way, she actually had almost like a tailgate area called the Born Brave area, where she had a Born Brave bus. Kids under 25 could apply to come on the bus. There were drinks, and often she would show up. And she had counselors on the bus, because what she wanted to help these kids understand is if they were being bullied or they were kicked out of their home because of their parents, they had somewhere to go and someone to talk to. She wanted to demystify counseling for these kids, to know that you can talk to someone about what's going on. Again, I love what she's doing there. In terms of, is this a great business strategy? It absolutely is, for those folks who might doubt that companies and brands can really share what they stand for. This is some great research from Millward Brown Optimore and Jim Stengel, who was the top global chief marketing officer for P&G. And they looked at 10,000 companies, and they looked at the ones that were the best at leading with purpose. They called the Stengel 50, and when they mapped the financial performance, this Stengel 50 of companies who led with their values outperformed the S&P by 400%. So it isn't just something we feel good about. It literally makes sense, because customers are more loyal when they understand what you believe in as a brand. So for us in our businesses to think about, how do we showcase our values? And it isn't just for the LGBTQ community putting a rainbow flag up. I mean, we have to showcase in the way that we create experiences for people, is it the way it should be? And is it one that people would talk about? And that's, I think, the final arbiter. Would people share the experience that they had with your business with other people? All right, which leads me to one more best practice real quickly, if I can squeeze that in, and that is generating experiences worth talking about. So we have these evangelists. They absolutely love what you're doing. They love to talk about you. They run out of stuff to talk about after a while. So what it means is that we as businesses need to be really creative in getting people talking. We need to keep giving them things to talk about. Now, the great thing is now we have social media, and that's just a word-of-mouth jet stream for people to talk about businesses, right? And now we live in a very visual time where people love to post things that they see that are great. And I loved your example of that, the most Instagrammable art installation. People love to take pictures of that, right? It's just something like you gotta go there just for that. So creating experiences where people feel safe, people feel welcome, but also keep in mind, people love to post things they love to talk about. And I love to study pop culture and mix it with business. So when I look at some of the most amazing role models who love to create amazing over-the-top experiences, I think drag queens. I don't know about you. And are you guys fans, by the way, of RuPaul's Drag Race? Okay? I love it. And just as an aside, what I have to say, what I love is a little queer show that started in 2009 has now brought queer culture into the living rooms of people, millions of people around the world. And I love that, and I think it's for the better. So now some of you might know exactly who these people are, right? I think New York Times said we're in the golden age of drag. Or is it the golden age of drag? I think it is, and we have a ways to go. I've been studying them literally for 6 years because I've just been so fascinated about how they do what they do. The book that I wrote called Fiercely Be Fabulous and Confident by Thinking Like a Drag Queen was really to understand the psychology of building a fearless persona, how these folks do it on stage, and how really any of us, especially women, can think about how to do that in everyday life, because we all need a little more fearlessness and fierceness in what we're doing. But looking at, from a marketing standpoint, creating experiences that get people talking. I mentioned earlier, it has to be something where people feel that they're welcome, that they want to talk about, but also something that's really cool, really neat, really different. And just really quickly, I just had to share this with you. This happened 2 weeks ago. I know this is not travel-oriented, although I did travel to get there. RuPaul's Drag Con. Anyone know what this is? Wait, who went to RuPaul's Drag Con? Anybody in this room? You did? Last 2 weeks ago? No. Oh, in New York, right. And so they've done it in LA for 5 years. It got so popular that they did it in New York. If you don't know what it is basically the Comic-Con of drag. Right? It's like a big giant convention for lovers of RuPaul's Drag Race and all things fabulous and drag. We go every year, and there were 50,000 people in LA 2 weeks ago having a great time. And this year, they really upped the ante on the experience. It's just super fun, so I just wanted to show it to you. There's 300 exhibitors spending millions. People are spending millions and millions of dollars with these exhibitors. And to keep people there, I thought this was really awesome. RuPaul actually created a giant dance party that he DJ'd. It looks something like this.
Woo! Cover girl, put the bass in your rock. Head to toe, let your whole body talk.
Okay, that was just random audience members up there dancing with RuPaul. I just thought it was a really fun way to create an experience. I literally stole this video off Twitter because people were talking about it everywhere. Just super, super fun. We had a great time. We always go in drag, and we were so lucky this year. We were in the top looks of day 2, having some fun. And what was really cool is that they had Instagrammable locations around the entire LA Convention Center so that you could stand in front of things and take pictures. They had ring lights, they had people. I mean, again, these are small examples, but just because it was so recent, I wanted to share that with you. The question is for you guys in thinking about your business, how do you create those experiences that are worth talking about? A lot of word of mouth is offline, so people will talk offline and you might not see it, but a lot of it is online where you can see it. You can see what people are saying. You can see people are saying negatively, positively, and hopefully they're recommending you and they're loving what you're doing. I have to say, these 2 people have really inspired me as an ally. I look to them for creativeness and for just doing amazing things. And I hope for your business that you will create experiences and things that your customers absolutely love as well. You guys, thanks so much for your time.